documents that Morehouse College owns. His speeches, his writings, his sermons. Right now we have on display the handwritten outline of the speech that he gave on the steps of Montgomery that is showcased at the end of the movie Selma, at the end of the Selma to Montgomery March. And so in my job, I've often reflected on the lessons that one can learn from the great speakers, and especially Dr. King. And so I thought today I would share 3 brief thoughts with you. Never, never, and always. Thoughts that I keep with me as I try to be a good speaker. The first never. Never, never, never be afraid to give a good speech twice. Or 3 times, or 10 times, or 15 times. Sometimes we think we got to make a great speech, and once we make it, it's done. It's like we hit the game-winning shot and we walk off the court. And that's it, we never give that speech again because we gave it so well the first time. But when you look at what Dr. King did, he would handwrite an outline. He would edit the handwritten outline. He would then handwrite a speech. He would then hand edit the speech. He would then have the speech or sermon typed. And he would edit that 10 to 15 times before he gave it. And then once he gave it, he would give it again, and he would give it again, and he would give it again, and he would refine it, and he would polish it, and he'd make it better. And it wasn't just to make that speech better, but it was also so that it was a part of him. So in case he ever needed to pull it out unexpectedly, he'd be ready. And of course, some of you know the history. Every single word, from the moment he says, "I have a dream," to the end of that great speech, was not written on any piece of paper that he brought with him that day. Those were all words that he had practiced in pulpits and in front of microphones from 1959, when he first gave a sermon called America Dreamer Nightwear, all the way to 1963. He was ready for the greatest moment, perhaps in American speaking history, to extemporaneously bring forward what was not extemporaneous to him. Never be afraid to give a good speech twice, or 3 times, or 10 times. First, never. Second, never. Never use a fact when you've got a story handy. We always, and I say this with great humility, Melissa, because I know facts are so important at this tournament. But I studied theology. My father was a minister, and I grew up in Arkansas when Bill Clinton was governor for many years. So I know the importance of an apocryphal story. But the reason why I never use a fact when you got a story handy is because facts stick in the head. Stories stick in the heart, in the gut, in our souls. Somebody once asked me, they said, "How do you think that the Center for Civil and Human Rights can get my 15-year-old to care about Dr. King?" "I can't. How can you?" I said, "Have you ever heard of Moses?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Did you ever meet him?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, how do you know about Moses then?" She said, "Well, I heard the story." I said, "That's how." We tell stories because we remember stories. Because stories get at truth. Stories stay with us. Never use a fact when you've got a story handy. And finally, the always. And the always is, remember that you are always the one giving the speech. Kennedy and King were 2 of the greatest speakers of the 20th century, but I would assert that King could not have given Kennedy's first inaugural with nearly the impact of the words, "Ask not what your country can do for you." And that certainly Kennedy could not have walked to the other end of the National Mall and given the "I Have a Dream" speech in the same way that King did. We each have to find our own voice. We each have to find the way in which we deliver it, in our own skins, with our own experiences. Working in civil rights as a white guy from Arkansas, doing whatever it is that you do. We have to be the best speaker that only we can be. Not another King, not another Kennedy, not another Lincoln, but the first of who each of us is. Never, never, and always. I'll leave you with this. When we started the project, Shirley Franklin asked for advice from other mayors around the country. The best piece of advice she got was from the mayor of Denver, who said, "You're going to work on a lot of things. You're going to do a lot of things. You're going to respond to a lot of fires. You're going to answer a lot of emails. There are a lot of things that you're going to have to do. You should always carve out to work on something that's going to matter 50 years from now. Because the simple act of working on something with that kind of longevity will change the way that you think about the world and will change the way you think about yourself.